Hey, thanks for joining me. I'm Donna, the Transdimensional Twin Flame and the Afterlife Artist. If you're not familiar with why I call myself that, it's because I am transdimensionally connected to my partner who transitioned across the veil in 2021. I am able to visit him using bilocation, and he's always here with me. And we've spent the last 3 years learning how to communicate in this new, amazing way. So a lot of my video content is going to be centered around interdimensional relationships, transdimensional relationships, somewhat related to twin flames because we are twin flames, which means we share a soul. That has made our communication easier. And we'll be talking somewhat about psychic abilities, mediumship, bilocation, after-death communication, and topics like that. So I have not posted here for a while, and there's a good reason for that. I've been sitting on this story for about a month, frankly, because I had to integrate the amazingness of it. And when I tell you what happened, you might think it's weird that I'm calling it amazing, but this is the change in perspective that you can have if you realize there is continuing life after physical death, and if you realize that you can still remain in contact with your loved ones. Grief is very much dissolved, or at least lessened to a degree, if you know these things. So the short backstory to my twin flame journey is that in 2014 I met someone long distance who became a friend, and when we started talking on the phone in 2015, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And then I spent the next 5 years learning everything I could about spirituality. And then in 2019, I was guided to take mediumship classes. I had never considered this, but all of a sudden, I just knew I had to do it. Well, in hindsight, the reason that I had to do this was because my spirit guides were preparing me for my partner's transition 14 months later. So by the time we get to 2020, my long distance friend and I become romantic partners, and we start making plans for him to move here near me or in with me. We live in different states, but the pandemic had just started and we both had a lot of issues to work out. I won't go into all the reasons why the world conspires to keep twin flames apart, but it's part of the journey. It is part of the process of learning to overcome these challenges and love someone unconditionally. So we did our job that way. He did not get to move here before he suddenly passed in 2021. But what happened was, since I had already taken mediumship classes for 14 months, I already knew that he would try to communicate with me, and I knew how different spirit communicators do communicate. I knew what to look for and what to ask for and what to do. He also knew what to do, partly because since we share a soul, my knowledge was now his knowledge. My spiritual preparation and all my hard work for the last 6 years before he passed paid off in the fact that he was able to ascend to a high level, and he had a lot of instant abilities to communicate. It's not always the case that someone who crosses over knows how to communicate. And it's not always the case that they can do it right away. Sometimes there's a delay period where they have to acclimate to life on their side. They may have life reviews and they may have healing to do, and they may not know how to communicate. They can learn that by taking classes on the other side, just like we do. But in our case, My partner and I were very familiar with how to communicate, and we just hit the ground running with that. We learned to communicate in a lot of different ways. It's all called after death communication. Signs, synchronicities. He would send me songs, usually through a different medium, not directly to me. Eventually, he was able to send them directly to me, by putting them in my head, or more often, leading me to them in some unusual way on YouTube. He was a musician, and he still is. He's a musician, singer, songwriter, and DJ. So music is one of our main ways of communicating. The way I knew that he was doing it, if it didn't come from an outside source like a medium, was that he would flood my body with buzzing euphoria energy. I always paid attention to the synchronicity of what was going on in my thoughts, what's going on in the outside world, and what's going on inside my body when these things happen. If you pay attention to this, you can learn how your spirit communicator friend is trying to communicate with you. So I can hear my partner with telepathy, or what's known as clairaudience. I can see him with two kinds of clairvoyance. Objective clairvoyance is where you can see things with your eyes open. I don't see him that way as much, but I do see energy that way all the time. And I can see him the normal way that most clairvoyants see, with their eyes closed in their mind's eye. Honestly, there's so many ways that we communicate. It'll have to be, we can do several videos about that. So, over the years, I spontaneously started to bilocate to his side of the veil. I didn't know what to call this at first. I thought you would maybe call it an astral travel or an out-of-body experience, but I have learned since that it's called bilocation in my case, because in an astral travel or an out-of-body experience, which are just two words for the same event, you do leave your body. You have the sensation of leaving your body, and you're aware that your soul, or your awareness, or your consciousness has left your body. In my case, I'm still in my body and I'm aware of it. I'm aware that I'm here, but I'm also aware of that I'm somewhere else. The room changes. I will suddenly be transported to, like the first time, it was a magical ballroom covered with giant, like, blue crystal sculptures that were like 8 feet tall and kind of shaped like crystal wedding cakes. And we were dancing with the most beautiful clothes and jewelry. I even was told what the style of jewelry was. The word Etruscan was placed into my mind, and when I looked up Etruscan jewelry, that is the exact style that we were wearing. So these events happened a few times, and then after I would say like a year and a half, I learned to do this on demand. So then in August 2023, I was sitting here listening to a playlist that my partner told me to listen to, and I was suddenly transported across the veil to my own wedding reception. He told me we would have one, as soon as I transitioned, because we didn't get any of that here in life. But I didn't realize that I was going to experience it before I transitioned. So for 3 days, whenever I would turn on this playlist that he told me to listen to, every single song pretty much would transport me back to this party. Now, this was an extreme experience, so I had Ascension symptoms for at least 2 months. I'm thinking it could have been longer. I'm a really sensitive person. I do channel. I channel energy, and I channel artwork, and I channel spoken word. But the energy part is the part that sometimes is overloading. If my vibration raises really quickly, I mean, that's a good thing. It's like an up level, but sometimes my body takes a while to adjust. So I will have ascension symptoms. I just had that a month ago. So why I'm telling you all this is a month ago, because I have the ability to bilocate, and we've been able to, I can stay across the veil for quite a long time. I can also have instant healing there. We have a house, so I can visit the healing pool inside of our house on the other side and get instant healing. There's also a healing center on the other side. There's lots of places, and I can go there to get healing. So what we started doing was leading people from our private Facebook group across the veil for parties. And we were starting to call them Raven Afterlife parties. Raven was the name of the first one that we had. So that stands for Radio Afterlife Veil Ending Night. Radio Afterlife is the radio station that my partner runs on the other side, because he is still that same DJ dude that he was before. So we decided to try and escort people to the other side to reunite with their loved ones the way that we do. And we did this right before Valentine's Day to try to help people have a nice experience connecting to their loved one right before a holiday that can sometimes be difficult, especially if the person who has crossed over is your partner. Now, my partner's anniversary of his Ascension Day was February 11th. And we figured it would be a nice gesture to celebrate his Ascension Day with a group party and, take our friends across the veil. So what happens is I go and visit the location. I am shown what the party is going to look like. We've had them in different places. The first one was in a magical cave called the Rave Cave. It's amazing. The second one for the group was at an amusement park by the ocean on the other side. So I create digital images of these places, and there's energy implanted into the images that all of our guests can use to help them when they connect to their loved one, and helps them bilocate to the other side. We also curate a playlist that has the same energy. My partner is able to embed light codes into music, and we were both channelers, so I'm able to channel it into my artwork. Even the digital artwork has the light code energy for spiritual awakening. People can feel it when they look at it. And we also charge crystals with the same energy. So we have a lot of different ways that we, as twin flames, are fulfilling our mission to spread true, unconditional love to everyone. We want to share this vibration with as many people as possible. So on February 11th was my partner's 3-year transition day anniversary. I wanted to demonstrate the fact that even your anniversaries that are difficult and that can cause grief, they can be transmuted into days of absolute joy. You can choose to celebrate and see this day in a different way than you might have normally. Now, it's not that hard for me because I'm fully aware that he is still here with me and we're still together. So the way he phrased it, he said, don't think of this as me leaving you. Think of it as me moving in with you early, because that's, he passed a month before he was going to move here, which I always thought was super tragic and sad, and it is. But really, he's still here, and he moved in when he transitioned, so he moved in a month early. That's our little joke. So it's not that hard for me to change the way I look at these days that are normally full of grief. I'm not saying I don't have grief sometimes, because life without the person you love the most in the physical is still going to be a challenge. You know, we all know that. It's a no-brainer. But as far as deep, crippling grief, that can absolutely be alleviated when you understand that you're a person still exists and you can still learn to communicate. It's like learning a new language. So, on February 11th, we're going live on Facebook to host our private group of people who want to try to bilocate to the other side. We called it the Tunnel of Love to the Other Side. There was a Tunnel of Love ride through a crystal cave. There's amusement park rides. There's the ocean. There's hot air balloon rides. There's a crazy skating rink. It's just fun over there. So this was our plan, to go on Facebook Live and lead our group through this experience. And it's mainly a self-guided experience. As they listen to the music that we provided and they look at the artwork we provided and meditate on going to this party. Okay? But what I didn't tell anybody, because I really haven't felt like talking about this until now, was that right before I went live on Facebook to host our Raven Afterlife Parties Tunnel of Love to the Other Side, I found out that my mom passed. And of course, this was unexpected. And so I can't ignore the fact that it's a huge synchronicity that my mom and my partner passed on the same date. There is no accident. That's not an accident. Now, in my case, I was not close to my mom at this point in the physical, but I'm able to talk to people in the non-physical, and I have already met with her over there, even before she transitioned. In fact, my partner, my dad, who was already over there, and myself helped my mom experience what it would be like on the other side as an exercise before she transitioned, several months before, as an exercise to help her not be anxious, right? I've experienced my own Ascension day. It was absolutely spectacular. I can't describe the energy and the way it feels to be unconditionally loved by everyone that you're with. The air, everything around you just exudes happiness and love, right? So I'm able to communicate with her in the non-physical, even, if it's not in the physical. So even though we weren't close at the end in her physical life, I had already worked on my shadow work around my relationship with her. I've been doing that for 9 years. Now, shadow is defined as the subconscious. Carl Jung coined that phrase. So, seeing the shadow as your subconscious, shadow work is the work of discovering your own subconscious. What makes you tick? What are your subconscious patterns? What things keep repeating in your life, and how are you partially responsible for that? Are you accidentally manifesting the things that you're afraid of because your subconscious is thinking about them? You know what I mean? You manifest from your conscious, your subconscious, and your higher self. So delving into your shadow work is extremely beneficial if you want to have after-death communication, because if you have any limiting beliefs that you can't do this, that will hinder you, and it will pretty much make it not happen. The most common reason people aren't getting the after-death communication that they want is, one, they're in deep grief, which is a lower vibration, and people in spirit are at a high vibration, and the two vibrations don't always easily mix. It's good to raise your vibration. Raising your vibration can be done with shadow work and lots of different methods as well, but untangling your own unconscious beliefs and behavior patterns will free you up to be yourself, and any limiting beliefs that you have You can let go, you can change those beliefs, you can change your perspective on pretty much anything to be more accurate and to be self-serving, not in a selfish way, but beneficial to you. So I had done all this shadow work around my relationship with my mom, and I had met with her in the astral, which I'm calling quantum therapy. So, she, my dad, my partner, and I, we sat around in the astral realm in a meditation, and I saw all of them. We all sat and held hands, and my mom and I discussed what it was like to be the mom and the daughter. Like, she explained to me what it was like. First of all, I'm legally blind. I am visually impaired. So she explained how that was difficult for her. And then I explained, why it was difficult for me sometimes and why I had to be rebellious sometimes because I had to be my full authentic self. And all was forgiven. We totally understood each other's point of view. And, I have no animosity towards her, even though we weren't seeing each other very often in the physical. In fact, the last day that I saw her was my partner's birthday. So now they share that little synchronicity, and they share an Ascension day. So back to February 11th, I'm on Facebook Live. I have just found out that my mom has passed, and I haven't even really digested that information yet. But it's not a bad thing for me because I have no regrets. I don't have any regrets about anything left unsaid because I can still talk to her. And I have talked to her in the non-physical. I don't have any regrets or guilt because I've done my shadow work, right? And I don't have any grief because she's still alive. She just doesn't have her physical body. I've had so much experience with people in the non-physical. I've had very, very in-depth experience with my partner at this point. So I don't have the normal grief because I know she's not gone. And in fact, I know our relationship's going to improve because as long as both people want it, you can continue a healing and nurturing relationship with someone who's crossed over. So I know all of this, and it's liberating to me. My mom didn't love her life, and she just wasn't happy here, and I was afraid that she was afraid to transition. I knew she hated it here, and I couldn't figure out why she was still here, honestly. And I thought maybe she was afraid. That makes sense. So it turns out she wasn't afraid. She was waiting until February 11th when my partner transitioned, right before my interdimensional party that I was hosting, on purpose, because it was liberating to hear that she's safe now. She's fine. She's not suffering. She's with my dad. And now she and I can talk again. So I didn't have the normal reaction that most people would have at hearing the news of this. And I understand that that's unusual. But the reason I didn't have the grief was because I had done my work on myself. I forgave her for everything that that ever happened. I don't judge people. That's another benefit of shadow work, is you just realize that nothing's personal. We all came here to play different roles in our lives. We agreed to this. And it's not personal. It's there for your learning and your growth. Everything happens to teach you something if you choose to learn it. So I know all this. And then we start the party. We do an introduction, and then I go meditate and attend my party across the veil for my partner. Well, my mom was at the party already. Now, I've already seen her at previous parties because you don't have to have crossed over to do this. Like, I'm doing it, and I haven't crossed over. The people in my group do it and they haven't crossed over. You can see people who are physically alive still and people who have already crossed over. But she had just crossed over. So I thought she would probably be at the healing center, or somehow otherwise occupied. But there's really no linear time there. So that's why you can access things in the future, things in the past. I already accessed my own Ascension day. I helped my mom transition, even though it wasn't her day yet. So, she's at the party. My dad's there too. And we have a nice time. And then, if that wasn't enough, the liberation that I felt, because this chapter of my life, it's a certain chapter of my life is coming to a close, but a different, more beautiful chapter is opening now, because the loss of a parent is a watershed moment. This is, my dad's already across the veil, so this is my second parent to go. But because I know what I know about continuing life after physical death, I didn't have any grief. I think sometimes grief is about regrets that you didn't say what you wanted to say, or that you haven't dealt with your emotions because you don't really do your deep shadow work. But I've already done all that, so I'm good. And I felt so liberated and happy for her. There's so many emotions because it was already my partner's transition anniversary. It was already an emotional day anyway. It was a big deal to host a party for people on my day when I could be having a lot of grief. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if I would have much grief, because sometimes you don't know. You think you're doing fine, and then something happens, and it's harder than you think. So because I felt so amazing, my vibration raised really quickly. Doing these parties raises my vibration as well. But like I said at the beginning of this video, the reason I started talking about Ascension symptoms was when my vibration raises really quickly, sometimes I will have Ascension symptoms afterwards, which is, for me, usually exhaustion, dehydration, inflammation, like foggy headedness. I can't really think straight, and I just have to rest. For as long as it takes for me to recover, I have to rest. I have to hydrate, take extra electrolytes, and just not exert myself. So that pretty much happened after this party. Not really in a bad way. It was all because this was a gift from my mom and my partner and my dad. Like, my whole family, all of their souls knew this was coming. This was a gift for me. I thought I was honoring my partner with this party. But what ended up happening was he and my mom and my dad all schemed to give me this liberation. And I channeled my mom 2 days later, spontaneously. I can feel when spirit is connecting with me. It's a very specific energy. And she very clearly told me that if I underestimated her role in my journey as far as if she was going to help me now. My dad is already my spirit guide, but she said that it just wasn't easy being the parent of a twin flame. Twin flames go through some of the hardest lives on the planet, and they're, for that reason, usually their parents have too, because if you're traumatized since the time you were little, which is usually the case for twin flames, usually your parents were traumatized as well, because people who unconsciously hurt other people a lot of times are just hurt people themselves. And you really do have to hopefully forgive that, because people do the best they can, but we're human. So I channeled her 2 days after her transition. and she explained that she's going to be guiding me as well. And she showed me a visual and explained how the energy boost that I got during our party, knowing that she was free and that we could start the next level of our journey together, that was her parting gift to me. So I had a completely different experience than most people have of someone transitioning. And it's because of the work I've done with my partner, and the spiritual work I've done on myself for the last 9 years. So I really could not believe that this had happened. I did not expect this. I have a lot of synchronicities in my life. I think I have more and deeper and more complicated synchronicities than anybody I've ever met. I just see them everywhere. It's partially not that they happen more to me, although they do. It's partially the fact that I notice them. You know, the more you notice that stuff, the more it happens. So anyway, that's my story about how my mom transitioned on the same date as my partner, right before I was having an interdimensional party, and I saw her there. And now she's my guide. So now I have my family on the other side that are giving me the support and the unconditional love that I didn't get in life, in physical life. I've never felt that before from this many people at the same time. My partner gives me that feeling, and my dad does too. Everybody on the other side that I see gives me that feeling. My guides and the other people that I associate with. But as far as having that real family experience where you're supported and loved the way that we all should be, I didn't get that in physical reality. But I can have it now, and I do have it now. So hopefully that is somewhat helpful as a guide for how you can really flip the script on physical transition to the other side. This could have been a much more complicated experience if I hadn't done this work on myself, and if I hadn't been aware that my partner and other people who have physically passed are still accessible to us if they want to be. Okay, thank you so much if you watched this far. I know this was a lot of information and quite a bit of backstory, even though this is just the tip of the iceberg. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.